Bob Dylan, the man who rewrote the language of song. The spark before the storm. Before the world knew his name, before the legend and the mystery, there was a young man from the cold streets of Hibbing, Minnesota, who couldn't stop listening to the crackling static of radio stations late at night. His name was Robert Allen Zimmerman, and he was chasing a sound, something raw, honest, and untamed. He devoured the music of Woody Guthrie, the poet of the working class, and felt that same hunger to tell the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it sounded. Folk music became his language of freedom, and his harmonica his confession booth. By 1961, he was on a bus to New York City, carrying a guitar, a notebook, and a dream that didn't yet have a shape. The Greenwich Village folk clubs were crowded with voices, but his voice, that gravelly, untrained rasp, cut through everything. It wasn't pretty. It was true. That truth got him noticed. His debut album, Bob Dylan, 1962, was mostly traditional songs, rough around the edges yet charged with conviction. But his second record changed everything. The voice of a generation who never wanted the job. When the Freewheelin Bob Dylan landed in 1963, it was like lightning striking the American conscience. Songs like Blowin' in the Wind and A Hard Rain's a Gonna Fall didn't just fill the airwaves, they filled the streets. The civil rights movement found its unofficial anthem in Dylan's words. Yet, even as journalists crowned him the voice of a generation, Dylan squirmed under the weight of that title. He didn't want to be a prophet. He wanted to be a poet. He once said, "A song is anything that can walk by itself." And his songs walked right into the heart of the 1960s, restless, searching, demanding answers to questions America wasn't ready to ask. Plugging in, the shock heard around the world. By 1965, Dylan was restless again. Folks' purity began to feel like a cage. So he did the unthinkable. He plugged in. At the Newport Folk Festival, he took the stage with an electric guitar and a full band. The first notes of Maggie's Farm blared through the speakers, and half the crowd booed. They called him a traitor, but in truth, Dylan wasn't abandoning folk. He was expanding it. That same year, Like a Rolling Stone dropped. 6 minutes of unleashed fury, disillusionment, and freedom. It shattered radio norms and redefined what a pop song could be. Then came the legendary trio, Bringing It All Back Home, 1965, Highway 61 Revisited, 1965, and Blonde on Blonde, 1966. This was Dylan at full creative ignition, surreal, electric, untouchable. His lyrics poured like a fever dream, lovers, saints, jokers, and outlaws, all colliding in verses that read like modern scripture. The crash and the silence. At the height of his fame, Dylan vanished. A motorcycle crash in 1966 forced him to retreat from the chaos. For a time, the prophet fell silent, or so it seemed. Behind closed doors in Woodstock, he kept writing, recording, and reinventing himself. The basement tapes, informal jam sessions with the band, captured an artist rediscovering simplicity. When he re-emerged with John Wesley Harding, 1967, and Nashville Skyline, 1969, his sound was stripped down, tender, almost pastoral. Gone was the electric blaze. In its place, reflection, restraint, redemption. It was Dylan's first great reinvention, but not his last. The chameleon years. If the 1960s made Dylan a myth, the next decades made him a mystery. In the 70s, he dove into country, blues, and even gospel, always one step ahead of what anyone expected. Blood on the Tracks 1975 stands as one of his rawest, most personal albums, an emotional autopsy of love and loss that showed his pen could cut deeper than ever. Then came Desire 1976, full of cinematic tales and moral intrigue. But just as the world thought it had figured him out again, Dylan found faith. His Christian trilogy, Slow Train Coming 1979, Saved 1980, and Shot of Love 1981 shocked many, but it was pure Dylan. Fearless, committed, defiant. He turned his concerts into revival meetings, delivering sermons of salvation and struggle. Critics were divided, fans were confused. Dylan just kept writing. The poet ages gracefully. By the 1980s and 1990s, Dylan was no longer chasing trends. He was defining longevity. He launched what became known as the Never-Ending Tour, performing hundreds of shows year after year, a wandering minstrel still chasing truth down every highway. Then in the 2000s came an unexpected renaissance. Albums like Love and Theft 2001, Modern Times 2006, and Tempest 2012 found Dylan older, rougher, yet more profound than ever. His voice, now a growl of gravel and whiskey, carried the weight of time itself. These records weren't nostalgic, they were timeless, drawing from the ghost of American blues, jazz, and folk to tell new stories of aging, faith, and endurance. The Laureate of Song. In 2016, when Bob Dylan received the Nobel Prize in Literature, the world paused. A songwriter, not a novelist, not a poet, had joined the ranks of Hemingway and Faulkner. Some questioned whether song lyrics belonged in the same breath as literature, but Dylan had already proven it decades earlier. His songs were literature. They just happened to come with a melody. His acceptance speech quoted Homer, Moby Dick, and Buddy Holly in the same breath. That's Dylan, the bridge between ancient myth and modern noise. He once said, "Songs are alive in the land of the living, but songs are different than literature. They're meant to be sung, not read." Still, his words continue to be studied, debated, and quoted, not just as lyrics, but as living language. The legacy of an enigma. Bob Dylan's legacy isn't just in the records he sold or the awards he won. It's in the permission he gave every artist after him. He taught the world that you didn't need a perfect voice to sing the truth, that poetry could live inside a guitar riff, that art didn't have to please, it had to mean something. From Bruce Springsteen to Patti Smith, Joni Mitchell to Taylor Swift, his fingerprints are everywhere. His songwriting broke the dam between pop and poetry, and everyone who came after is swimming in those waters. The restless soul still wandering. Even now, well into his 80s, Dylan is still on the road. His shows are unpredictable, reworked versions of old songs, new inflections, different keys. To him, the past isn't sacred, it's material for reinvention. When he released Rough and Rowdy Ways 2020, critics hailed it as one of his finest late career works, wise, eerie, and full of life. It proved that Dylan never stopped becoming. He remains what he's always been, a mirror to America's conscience, a shapeshifter of sound and meaning, a man who can make a single harmonica note feel like a question to the universe. You don't need a weatherman to know which way the wind blows. Subterranean Homesick Blues, 1965.